beautiful Wednesday morning, everyone, and we're excited to welcome you to Atlantic Television Network Blowout, which is a syndicated live program of the network. And our job here is simple: we bring you conversation on special interest topics, news, events, and stories. And we do this through our correspondent reports, expert opinions, and stakeholders analysis. Our first point, of course, usual, is an anchor's chat. Guess what? President Tinubu launches a birth marriage registration portal.
LG administration Governor Oti appoints 17 mayors as council heads.
In off-cycle elections, NBC warns stations against compromise of broadcast ethics.
November 11 polls PSC to deploy officers as staff monitor for election.
On November 11 Google polls, INEC publishes 40 polling units where elections won't hold.
On investigation on the half Senate to probe illegal Federal Civil Service Commission employment.
And on nation building, reps commits to adequate funding, useful legislation, and security.
On unionism, we have NLC TUCM back on total strike in Imo State.
And I guess on the show this morning is a public affairs analyst and lecturer with University English Department, University of Port Harcourt. That's none other than Eric Ibifa. We'll come back to you on Anchor's chat after the break. But before if you need to run and you want to, you can't wait to, you don't want to miss any part of the conversation, not to worry, as always, we got you covered. So all you need to do is join us on other mobile virtual platforms where you can get to pick up watch all of the show wherever you are, anywhere in the world that is. So watch us live on our website, AtlanticTelevisionNetwork.tv, or you can also watch us live from our app, ATN Live. Well, if that doesn't work, not to worry, you can also catch up the show live right now on our Facebook and YouTube platforms, and that's Atlantic Television Network. So we'll be back to you after the break. Let's get to find out about this National Birth Register and all of that. I think that's an interesting conversation. Tinubu may just decide to surprise us. Well, stay with us.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what they blow.
I have fought very firmly.
Welcome back to ATN Atlantic Television Network Blowout, actually. And now it's time for Anchor's Chats. So, I told you this is going to be an interesting conversation. I don't know why Bestseller is smiling the way he's smiling, but everyone, this is the story.
Because the president is actually beginning to, dazzle us positively.
Fingers crossed. Both the opposition, Labour Party, and Obedience agree. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will today, Wednesday, launch a birth, death, and marriage registration portal. The registration system includes all civil registrations briefing on Monday. The chairman stated that the commission, in collaboration with the United Nations Children's Fund, developed the ECRVS Operational Readiness Assessment Report, which showed the potential of digital technologies in providing transformative outcomes in CRVS and integrating data from multiple systems to securely store data at scale in a cost-effective way in Nigeria. The NPC chairman noted that the system provides a digital certification in all cases, an accessible verification platform to registered organizations, and a central management system that's a dashboard that depicts a 2 million, blah, 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 and all of that, nothing comprehensive, same old data being recycled over and over again. But like I said, I'm using reverse stage for instance. You don't have anywhere you can walk into and say, okay, I just turned 18. I want to, do my national identification, the NIN or whatever you need to do because I'm now an adult. And I want to now go. Now, I hope that for every local government, I hope that for every state, there is a registration center and now I hope that the government hospitals, the primary healthcare centers, the healthcare centers generally, the truth is we don't know the number of people who died, so we don't really have a comprehensive data to say this is what.
Is where you can actually easily pull out the number of people you have per time, maybe birth, if we're talking about birth, we're talking about death and marriage, so to say. All right, so
divorce.
Divorce, okay, that wasn't mentioned, but it
no,
could also.
It was.
Okay,
they mentioned it, yeah.
All right, it helps too. So, Tinubu actually, this is one of the biggest surprise for me that is coming up now.
And guess what? This platform can be designed in such a way that the what is it called? The NIN, the NIN can also balance it out. All they need to, because there's an existing data from there. Now NIN is not just for those who have turned 18. Every child. This thing we'll do by saying national identification is actually, now they are talking about national birth register and death register. Every child who is born in Nigeria, your birth certificate, the processing of your birth certificate should also have that NIN attached to it. It is a unique number for you as a Nigerian, which your parents would have. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Yes. And I know this idea of saying, what should be a secret? I'm an adult. I have my BVN. That is what should be a secret. Why should it be a secret? Because it has to do with my money and all of that. So all you need to do is, a child is born, your birth certificate, for instance, has your NIN on it. It's given to your parents. So when you're growing up, when you're registering for nursery school, kindergarten, and what have you, you have that number attached to you. That is a number that you're required to use. You're registering for junior WAEC, your standard 6 or primary school living certificates. All of that becomes something that you have attached to you. If peradventure the person dies in the process, all they need to do is, at the point of death, at the point where a medical personnel is certifying the person dead, or after some time where there are activities not seen around the person or the family, all they need to do is they go to that place, strike that out as non-existent or death or something. So all of these things are not supposed to be rocket science, if you ask me. So so all of these things are not supposed to be rocket science, if you ask me. So if you make it now, that would help us to know some of these states like Lagos State, Kano State, and the KKK states that usually have a very humongous numbers when it comes to political permutation. Do they really have these numbers? So when the system is controlled by professional ICT guys who knows how these things are done, just sit down. Don't just tell us you're going to launch this. Let it be that this so-called dashboard is comprehensive enough to manage this situation. It's not supposed to be difficult. So when they launch it, like if they launch it today, I'm supposed to sit down here. I came from a family. As soon as I'm registered, you understand? If you log on there, your name just shows that you registered in that same.
This becomes cost effective, like I was concerned about. Yes.
So it's not a big deal. It's a commitment there. Is anyone there who is willing to show costs that this is needful? We can actually achieve this. That is the critical part here. It's not supposed to be a big deal. And at the end of the day, people know those who are in the communities, those who don't have smart devices. They can now go to the town hall, because now we're now at the point where if you don't have your NIN, you don't have nobody. They don't need to do campaign for NIN anymore. Because you know that if you don't have it, you don't have an identity. You cannot do certain things. You can't have access to certain things. You cannot, for instance, as a father, you don't have your NIN or your voter card. They're going to register your child in university or in the school. The first thing the school is going to ask you, show your national identification. You know, what they need to see all to show, first of all, that you're Nigerian and what you're doing and all of that. But without all of, so this is applaudable, but
I also have one or two things to say.
okay, let's have your bots.
Okay,
But let me
now,
try go with my
because
bots.
as you were talking, because you know, I've actually wondered if you're techie, because the way you analyze all of these technological things and
my brain runs faster than me. Don't worry.
okay, because sometimes I think I've even asked you if you're tech inclined or whatever. As you were talking, I just had this idea. I think this should be taken further to hospitals and local government areas.
Absolutely.
So because I remember when my children were born, definitely you go for the birth certificates, okay? That's the hard copy.
Yeah.
So now an extension of what we're talking about, there should be a system, they should incorporate it in the hospitals right now. So whether you're going to
It should become compulsory, actually. Yeah.
exactly. So if you're in a private hospital or in a public one, so when at the moment a child is born, it should also be keyed
You
in.
must have a system in your hospital that is linked to the national database.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So for every birth, you understand?
They key it into the system.
Yeah, so the guys at the back end can now give us a, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, I'm borrowing from you, I'm learning from you.
You're not serious. Okay, so here is the cross of the mind. In fact, what we're talking about is that I have a boss who works with NICOMSAT. I think I'm going to call her after this.
Okay.
Because that's the first thing when I saw this, I said, okay, it's too late. I'll call her after now. Let me ask some questions. Now, here's the reason. Do we have a comprehensive national database? The answer is no. Number one. Do we, because we have the, you know, we now have the NIN, we have the BVN, we have the immigration, the international passport data, we have the driver's license, and maybe the national ID, the NIN. So we have all of these data and identification figures and numbers.
Passports.
Yeah. You know, scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
So if one of the things I know, if we're going to achieve this, we need to first of all, and I've been campaigning about this, to go back to having a comprehensive national database. And this is not what the MPC is going to do alone. The Ministry of Technology, Tunji Ojo, as a matter of fact, this is also one of the things he's been calling for, a comprehensive national database.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, if we're going to also actually do this, like I said, the but for me is, do we have presently the technology that can drive this? And one of those technology processes or devices or part is having a functional national satellites.
Whoa. Without
that, everything you're doing will end up either maybe a charade or what have you. We need to have that's why I'm going to call my bosses. She works. If we don't have a comprehensive database, number one, and to achieve that, we need to start from having a functional national satellite, not depending on other countries' satellites to run our internet, to run our country. This is one of the things that President Tinubu needs to figure out, and I hope he can listen to Tunji Ojo, and I hope that no one creates a hitch on his part. If we can get this, I'm going to tell Nigerians this right now. Our phone calls, in fact, when I get to the point where we don't have to pay for calls, like this recharge card will buy, that's voice calls, we will not even have to pay for that. I know what you have now, like when you have the WhatsApp, you can make calls to Facebook, like all of it. It becomes easier that way. Our cable TV subscription will also crash because all of these things depend on satellites to function.
Yes.
So, and then the quality of education and information in terms of internet too will also be less of a burden on Nigerians, so that everybody can cue into that. So I honestly think, as admirable, as an applaudable as this is, I honestly think that we need to begin to ask ourselves, what is the primary thing we need to do to, because all of those ones we talked about, the NPC, you set it up here, hospitals linked up, is one of the easiest thing to do. Tax Tunji Ojo and his team in the next 6 months, max, they should have all of these things run. It's not rocket science anymore. However, without our own functional national satellites, not the one that is functioning half, or not. That's why I'm going to ask her, where are we? So she can give me an idea where we are with all of that. Without all of that, trust me when I say this to you, we are not ready.
Like well prepared.
We are not ready, because that is where all of these things will be. This is why if I give this company gives you a contract right now, we know we can.
I hope so.
Serious? We can log on and say, this is the person doing this. So it's going to make our life a whole lot easier.
That's
correct.
We
can have a functional national satellite that in the orbit that is ours, not dependent on other countries. That is why some of the international cable companies operating in Nigeria today, you discovered that what you are paying, of course, ease of doing business in terms of power contributes, but in terms of facility-wise, we don't have what it takes to service in the orbit, the kind of satellite that's meant that can service over 200 million people. So I honestly think that why this is applaudable, we encourage it. This is long overdue, and it's one of the easiest things to achieve. We hope that the president and the NPC can partner with Tunji Ojo, and the president can fund. In fact, even if that's the only thing he will do for us, like so Obasanjo gave us telephone, mobile GSM, and all of that. If he can do this, it's going to go a long way to reduce the cost of ease of doing business for a lot of companies. Is going to help a lot. So, it's like the issue of electricity and what have you. So I hope that somehow this conversation can go beyond launching this platform today, but it can go from launching this platform and getting us the functional national satellites in the orbit, so that some of these things that cost us an arm and leg, the truth is, keeping yourself paying for your cable. We just learned that multi-choice is increasing. Is it by 15%, thereabouts?
They've always been increasing.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of persons are going to stop subscribing, because and it's going to give us some better things. And that's when we say we'll have a database, the technology ministry can now say, okay, this is where we have, this is what we have, this is the number of banked Nigerians. All of those guesses will no longer be what it used to be. I think it's applaudable. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best, as usual. All right, well, that's much you can do on the Anchor's chat. When we come back, we're going to be looking at LGA administration. Welcome back to ATN Blowout. Apologies, it's Atlantic Television Network Blowout. Now, let's get on with the show. Abia State Governor Dr. Alex Oti has appointed mayors for the 17 council areas Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Prince Uzo Nwachukwu, disclosed that the list of the nominees has been sent to the House of Assembly for screening and confirmation as required by law. The nominees include Isialangwa South LGA Chukwu Ahoronye, Ukwa West LGA Chairman Mr. Newman Azu, and Deputy Mr. Anele Michael Arachukwu LGA, amongst others. Now, the statement also added that the list of the above-mentioned persons has been transmitted to the State House of Assembly by Dr. Alex Oti for screening and confirmation as required by law, urging the concerned persons to approach the State House of Assembly for their screening. Okay. I don't know why this news editor, whoever edited this, did not put my own LGA. So I know the name of the person and the deputy. But jokes apart. I don't know how much of a constitutional issue this is, because there's supposed to be local government chairman who are heading each of the local government by law.
As usual.
Yeah, because now I don't know if there is a constitutional provision to have a mayor and an elected official who will be managing the affairs of the local government. That's on one side. Now, if you also look at the other angle, which is earlier on, there is a man he appointed as a mayor in Abia State, one of the big businessmen, and a lot of people had their angst towards the appointment of that man. While the people are still on that, he went on to now make it the whole 17 local government area. Well, as interesting as this comes across, I don't know what the intention may be. I hope it is not going against the law that, so that established the local government council and how people should get into office. They are supposed to be elected. He's supposed to conduct election for the local government council. And that's one of the things that the opposition have also been querying, why he is not talking about that. Well, so now that he has opted to go for appoints mayors, and then they are going to be screened by the State House of Assembly. I don't know what they intend to make out of this. Now, the reason why I'm asking all of this is, in the drive to see that you bring about a new Abia State, as much as people love you, as much as people respect who you are, or who you've been, and what you bring to the table, it's also important not to take the law that established any institution for granted. The reason is that it will come back to haunt you. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, and then I hope that somehow he will find a way to ensure that this is in line with the laws. I can't remember anyone appointed. I know that people appoint people to stay in offices as a local government chairman, but Nigerians have also raised dust about that, saying that people who are not elected by the people, heads of local governments who are not elected by the people, who they are supposed to be leading, shouldn't be the ones signing out the funds or managing the funds of the local government. That it is illegal. So I don't know what this is, but the sound of a mayor kind of takes the shit from the norm.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Dr. Alex Oti is actually doing a swing to the Western style in a way. Yes, because it's just nice to hear of this, mayors of the 17 local government Abia State. Well, let's give it to him, definitely, like you said, but taking off that name, the usual councillors of the, chairman, chairman of the local governments. I wonder how the people at the grassroots would actually perceive this, because, well, he should have a way of convincing them. He should have a way of getting it to mean exactly what they are expecting, because not just to appoint them, because definitely they will start showing up for screening at the State House of Assembly, but not just to appoint them. I think he's actually had some workable projects that are really speaking in his name. So, and I believe this cannot be out of place. This definitely wouldn't be out of place. So I expect to see this working, and I expect that people in the different respective local government areas would actually confess to the fact that this is a new development that actually appeals to them in some sort. Now,
there's something you said, again, you talk about denying the people the right to choose who becomes their local government chairman or mayors, if you may. Now, if you want to change the lingua from chairman to mayor, that redefine their responsibilities, fantastic. I don't see anything wrong with that. But which is also, but it should also be in line with the constitutional provision for those offices.
Yes.
Now, like I said, I don't know if there is a constitutional provision for mayors in the Nigerian constitution for the local council leaders. But I know that there may be, because in Port Harcourt, we have the person in charge of the Port Harcourt local government, Falga, is called mayor.
But don't you think that's a bigger name for them?
Well, if it's a bigger name, it should come with bigger responsibility. So they should deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I maybe there is a constitutional provision. Maybe he's not really doing anything out of the constitutional provision for those offices. However, again, the idea of appointing them and not having the people elect them will come across as, first of all, abuse of their civic rights to choose who takes the lead at the local councils. That's number one. Number two, it will also come across as having a situation where you're imposing the people you have chosen.
Yeah.
Because now you have made the choice, you're not sending it to the state assembly for the state assembly to screen them. Let's see, there's some opposition in the state assembly. Let's see if their voice still counts. Maybe if their voice still counts, something can come out of that. And I'm pointing at that to basically say that in the course of doing what you think is right, what you think is good, it wouldn't also be nice to have you, disregard the Constitution of Nigeria. Those are offices recognized, local government offices, local government chairman, local governments have office leaders, are offices recognized by the Constitution. So I hope that somehow he will find a way to properly legalize this, not just appointing these people and asking the assembly to screen them. Again, if Dr. Oti, as much as we love him, he's my governor, by the way.
Oh, okay.
As much as we love him, I'm telling you the state assembly right now, if his appointment of these people means that there will no longer be local government chairman, because I don't know because he's also talking about them having deputies.
Okay.
If the appointment is going to mean that there will no longer be local government chairman, and this bill is supposed to replace local government chairman, I hope you will ensure that it is in line with the law. If this appointment is not in line with the law, because local government elections are recognized by the law, that is also why you have the states electoral bodies, offices that control those elections.
Yes.
So if this is not recognized by the law, I hope that you will reject it. As much as he wants to, let these people go to the polls. Let them be voted into office.
Exactly.
Let other political parties too have their way. Let them also be voted into, given opportunity to contest. Let the process be made open. So I don't want to. I'm having this feeling that I don't want to believe. We don't have all the details, but I don't want to believe that this is. He will consciously want to go against the law. No, this is not what the Labour Party you campaign for. This is not even what your persona represents. So if this is against the law, I hope the Assembly rejects it into two and demand for the right thing to be done. Like I said, there's nothing wrong in calling them mayors, if in my own head.
If it's just the change of name.
If it's just a change of nomenclature. However, if you're changing this nomenclature, let it also be defined, there's also be well-defined that there are responsibilities you expect to come from this.
Okay.
And in the absence of all of that, ensure that what needs to be done is also done. And I'm going to say that because you cannot, in all fairness, say you want to do something and now it's looking like this is contrary to the norm. Already, a lot of youth groups have been opposing some of the steps he's taking. As much as people stand up for you and applaud what you're doing and ask you to go on, we hope that they don't also cheer Dr. Alex Oti to his own doom, because it's too early to start going against existing laws that he knows. So if you're going to appoint people as mayor, is it on a temporary basis? Are they going to just be there for quite some time? But again, are they going to be taking responsibilities when it comes to what should be happening in local government in terms of development and what have you? If that is the truth, why are people whom the community or the local government members of the natives or residents did not choose to lead them, being imposed on them to take responsibility in terms of development of the local council and all of that? The question is why. If you feel that these guys are worth it, these people are worth it, what I think Dr. Alex should do is go on, get them to the polls, campaign for them, rally around them, get people to support them so they can come in. And I just want to wrap up this on my part before I come over to you is by saying that any attempt by any politically elected official to sabotage the process of opposition is antithetical to the development of a state, of a local government of the country. If you shut down opposition, who then checks you? Saying that nobody should check you, which is where some of these actions drives to. So the idea of having someone in power, someone in authority, take decisions that is looking like it is against the law, because we know that local government officials are supposed to be elected. Like I said, that's why we have the State Electoral Commission, the body that conducts those elections. So if now you're saying that you're appointing these people to take over the management of the local government council, you have now made the state electoral body invalid, because what exactly is supposed to be their responsibility? You have also now said that you can do what you want because you're the governor, and I don't think that is what the people gave him power for. So I honestly hope that if his action goes contrary to the rules, the existing constitutional provision for the office of the chairperson or council chairman in local government, I hope that the assembly rejects it and demand, and I hope that to those who concerned can raise their voice and stop this before it goes beyond this. Demand for proper elections. If the constitution permits you to change the nomenclature from chairman to mayor, why not? We have a mayor in Port Harcourt anyway. I'm sure the assembly checks this, and if there are opposition still in Abia States, by the way, these days you can't really tell.
Definitely, there will be
if there's an opposition,
reactions.
and I hope that they stand up to this right now and reject it in total. That's what I will hope that comes to be.
That's all.
Okay. We'll just take a quick break, everyone. We'll come back to you. We're going to talk about NBC's warning against compromise of broadcast ethics towards the off-cycle elections, but that'll be after the break.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what they blow.
I have fought a very family.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable
You're a human
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Welcome back to ATN Blowout, Atlantic Television Network Blowout, everyone. Now, I'd like to quickly welcome Eric Bifa. Good to have you on ATN Atlantic Television Network Blowout.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Vivian, and good morning, bestseller.
Let's quickly take off with the story we have right now. National Broadcasting Commission warned broadcast stations against compromising the ethics of the profession ahead of the November 11 governorship elections. The Independent National Electoral Commission will be conducting off-season elections in 3 states, Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo states on Saturday, November 11. The warning by NBC said in a statement said, is followed rather some trend notice where ethics and ethos have been thrown to the winds by politicians using broadcast media platforms. This, the Commission said, is against the provisions of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code in Section 5, that in using materials for news and current affairs programs, the broadcaster shall avoid hate speech, inflammatory, derogatory, and divisive remarks or allusions. The Commission, therefore, urge all broadcasters to desist from using or allowing their platforms and facilities to now. You are seated down here as a guest, and then I don't know what you're going to say or how you're going to say it. There are situations where sometimes you have already blown out on a particular issue before we could even come in. So when NBC, makes these veiled threats, your platforms, your guests, and all of that, let's take it from this angle and we'll take it beyond that. How exactly are you supposed to manage? Is it the emotion of a guest? Is it what the guest is going to say? Because you're not in the person's mind. There's no machine to read the heart right now to know what is going to come out of somebody's mouth. How do you think we should be able to, as media professionals, now it's an outsider, begin to manage some of these things other than cautioning the guests when that is done?
Well, first and foremost, I have to admit that I'm impressed by your point about blowing out before you realize that the damage has been done. But I assume that this is just one of those routines that we've become accustomed to whenever we get election seasons, given the fact that, the tempo, the rhetoric of, verbal engagements in the public space gets ratcheted up a bit. It's understandable that the NBC, being the guardian, as it were, of the airwaves, will usually step in to issue these warnings. I don't think it's really a threat. I don't also think it's meant to, if you like, shackle those who operate in the industry. But what I read this to mean is that it's just a cautionary tale, a warning put out there to broadcast organizations that they should be careful. But in the kind of things they allow people to use their platforms to put out in the public space. But I think that it puts broadcast organizations in a very difficult situation because, like you pointed out, the dilemma is in the fact that you're not in the guest's mind. As Shakespeare himself said, there's no art to know the mind's construction in the face. You can't tell what anybody is going to say once the person is handed the microphone. But I think that broadcast organizations have a responsibility to always disown such problematic statements, and where necessary, put out clarifications or make the point that these things haven't been independently verified or ascertained. That way, I think that they would escape some kind of legal responsibility for whatever may be the product or the consequence of those remarks. And the other thing is moderators like yourself, and I have to give you credit. You and Bessel are doing an excellent job in this regard. Moderators like yourself have a responsibility to also, but that's the word, moderate. You also moderate when you notice that some guests are losing it, and then they are putting out statements that are clearly incendiary, in some cases designed deliberately to hurt others, especially statements that are not verified, statements that are unfounded, and statements against people, statements that, impugn on people's characters when those people are not there to defend themselves. I think it's part of your own responsibility as moderators to also rein them in. That's the way I look at this.
All right, the election is just very close, Saturday, that's November 11th, and then this is coming up exactly to, as a reminder to all broadcasting stations and all that. So are we supposed to look at this with respect to the elections coming? Is it just to have a kind of control over what transpires within this period, coming from the airwaves and also people who are supposed to be reacting to what will happen towards the election?
Well, I think these issues remain pertinent during, before, after the elections. But the issues become even more pertinent when we approach elections. Of course, we know that because the stakes are quite high during elections, the tendency is that it brings out the best and the worst in people. So it's only appropriate that this is the time for the NBC to issue this warning. But that's not to say that these issues of ethics, issues of professionalism, ethos, and all those matters are only relevant during elections. No, they are for all seasons. What use is a broadcast station if it operates in a manner that flouts the ethical or breaches the ethical standards of the profession? That naturally, as a matter of fact, it's just that it's the fact that the consumers, that's advertisers, viewers, listeners, will naturally gravitate towards stations that they perceive, hold in high esteem such values as impartiality, professionalism, adherence to professional ethics, and so on. So these are eternal, all-time values. But of course, elections have a way of straining the opposite of these things, and so it's only fitting that these warnings should be issued during elections. But the point is that these things don't apply only to the coverage of elections. There are crisis moments also outside of elections when it's necessary for broadcast organizations to show some level of responsibility. It is not for nothing that the media is called the fourth estate of the realm. your responsibility is to guide the realm, prevent a total breakdown of law and order. So in some cases, you may even have access to verifiable information. But if you consider that information incendiary, capable of leading to a breakdown of law and order, then when the responsibility of professionalism imposes on you the necessity to hold back and not to put it out because of the fear of the consequences.
All right. Now, let's look at this, the core of all of this. For a lot of persons, NBC is doing too much. Sometimes they tell you NBC is overstepping their bound, but NBC is the monitoring spirit of the media. But well, no pun intended, by the way. But if you put that and say, okay, this is their responsibility to ensure that service delivery when it comes to media, broadcast organizations are meeting up to the standard that it should be. Now, we now come to the point where an advertisement is brought for you. Of course, Acon is supposed to be part of that. It brought you as an organization. You also set up this business to make money, by the way, and now there are things that ought not to be in that. We saw this in 2023 elections, the campaigns and all of that. At what point now should we say, remember that a media organization is set up to make money? How do you pay the NBC levies and all of that and what have you? So in this line, in the view of a business owner, the business organization, and the NBC's responsibility to ensure that quality, to maintain quality control in terms of content being broadcast to the Nigerian public, and also what ACON should be doing, how do we receive Senator Doediri, Comrade Odensi Radiri, and you don't know what they are going to say. These things are going to be said live. How do you think that NBC, ACON, and other relevant bodies can come together to ensure that these things are properly managed? Or what mechanism do you think can be put in place to check some of these things?
Well, with regard to the last point you just made now, which is, I think, an appropriate place to begin, I thought I addressed that issue just now. I think it would be unreasonable to impose on broadcast stations that responsibility to determine what their guests say. But after the guests would have uttered whatever it is they are uttering, where those matters are controversial, I think it's the responsibility of broadcast organizations to state that, look, these things haven't been independently verified by us, and therefore this person bears responsibility for it. I mean, newspapers do that. They say, oh, articles published on this page do not reflect the responsibility of our media house, but the opinions of the writer, even when those writers are members of the editorial to impose that responsibility on media organizations. With regard now to the situation, to the way the CBN exists to commercial banks, it's a regulatory agency, and therefore it maintains best practices, international standards, professionalism in the industry. And if you ask me whether we need that kind of outfit, I think we do. We really do, so that we don't, enter a situation where, like you said in your intro, professionalism, ethics, ethos, and such cherished values are thrown overboard or thrown out the window. Without that, you are going to lay the ground for anarchy. For those who are business owners in the broadcast industry, I think there is also that additional responsibility for them. Look at it this way: you need to be operating in a business environment or in a business climate that is characterized by stability for you to even make profit. So when you put out statements that are likely to cause a breakdown of law and order or cause a breach of the peace, where would you then be doing your business? Where would you then be making that profit you seem to be so obsessed with? So I think for me, there has to be some kind of synergy amongst agencies like ACON, the NBC, even broadcast organizations. I mean, there's an organization, I think it's BORN, Broadcast Organization of Nigeria.
Of this, which I talked about, mechanisms. Because over time, there are some beep, these sensors you have when certain words are said. So the NBC, in line of making their job easier, their work easier, is it also safe to say that at this point, because like I said, if I go on with that, if we are carrying a Chief Timmy Receivers last campaign drive or any of them live on Atlantic Television Network, for instance, you discover that you don't know, just like some gets seated, you don't know what he's going to say.
Nigerian Video and Film Censors, Nigerian Film and Video Censors Board will go through it and then take out anything that's considered vulgar or injurious. However,
that is supposed to be.
Yeah, yes, but that's not the case for something like Blowout now, because this is live, so you're not responsible for the kind of things I say. But I think that the responsibility should be on me as an individual, as well, without meaning to blow my trumpet, as when I have any, as a mature person, to know that, okay, certain things are not to be said in public.
Okay, so you think that pre-informing your guests can help?
Yes, I think it can help tone things down a little, even though that's not to say it's a silver bullet that will always work, because some people, once they see a microphone, they simply lose it and then they forget that, certain things are not succeeded in pulling down the entire structures of society. So that's the way I view responsibilities vis-a-vis rights. Rights are there, but rights always come with responsibilities. Quite often, we tend to overlook the responsibilities and get carried away by the rights.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get straight to the next conversation. Police Service Commission says it has concluded arrangements to deploy staff monitors for the November 11 governorship elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states. Ikechukwu Ani, head press and public relations, in a statement said the staff monitors are to be deployed to all the senatorial districts in the 3 states and have been. The statement added that the commission will hold the police officers accountable for their actions and inactions throughout the period of the election and will not hesitate to discipline appropriately any officer found wanting in the discharge of his or her election duty. Arase said the provision of essential security.
The police as an organization, as an institution, should take care of the welfare of its men in uniform who are deployed on election duty. Once you allow a situation where police officers get, fed, if you like, or they are refreshed, to use a more benign term, they are refreshed by, partisans as election, because you have situations where, under the guise of saying that we should evolve to a state where we can we may not even need to announce a restriction of movement on elections day. People can go vote and then return to work. I mean, imagine shutting down the entire economy for one day, as we do during elections, and then there is restriction of movement, business concerns can open, and then, so I think we should begin to look towards that. While it is a healthy thing that the police is doing its responsibility, for me, I dream of a situation where we won't need heavy police involvement or heavy security involvement during elections. Would have imbibed some of the ethos of democracy, some of the ethics of democracy, would have become acculturated to democracy to the point where we can carry out these things without necessarily resorting to, over-policing or over-securitizing the area.
All right, now we're still on November 11. Independent National Electoral Commission has published detailed information on 40 polling units where elections will not hold on Saturday. INEC National Commissioner and Chairman information.
Polling units per state in those 3 states. And we're talking about 40 here. That's citizens who have not been responsible for any crime at all. They didn't commit any crime. It's just that they happen to be unfortunate victims of a breakdown of law.
Carry out a holistic investigation on the illegal employment of the Federal Civil Service Commission officers. The Senate resolved to this resolution after a motion on the urgent need to ensure federal character principle curb lopsidedness and emerging infractions in the recruitment and deployment of officers by the Federal Civil Service Commission and related agencies, sponsored by the Chairman Senate Committee on Rules and Business, Senator Titles. There is a report.
According to the report read by Senator,
people on their own, without reverting to the purpose for which the Service Commission was established, which is to bring equality, fairness to the process. And so you have many states that are underrepresented in different MDAs because they don't know 1 or 2 persons in high positions that will hire them. And so we must take this motion very seriously to bring sanity to the process so that at least our citizens can feel a sense of belonging to the country Nigeria.
The Senate therefore resolved that the committees move immediately for the investigations of illegal employment in the Federal Civil Service Commission.
Those who are in support of the prayer as amended, that the 3 committees of the Nigerian Senate should jointly investigate this matter and revert to the Senate within 2 weeks. Those in support say aye. Aye. those against.
Quite often it's not for a lack of rules, it is just that people don't want to conform to those rules. So there's always an attempt to want to sidestep the rule, and then we also don't help matters with the way we relate to public officers. You know, when somebody holds public office, after a while, we tend to ask them, well, what did you bring to your people? How many of your own people did you employ when you were in this outfit? So the tendency is that people then feel they are under obligation, or they are pressurized into wanting to favor their own people. So if I understand this correctly, it's not as if recruitments don't take place. Recruitments take place, but you find that the recruitments are weighted heavily against or in favor of certain geographical regions of the country because of the origin of the person who is at the helm of affairs in those institutions, and this ought not to be so. Recruitment into the Federal Civil Service on other MDAs, that is a lot, limits or sets aside the juicy positions for people of his own ethnicity or people from his own state of origin. This for me ought not to be the standard we should have. Like you said, Vivian, this is 2023. We should have evolved way past this. Maybe that's also why you notice that productivity is severely hampered in the public sector as opposed to in the private sector, where quite often, because of the motive for profit, employers of labor are motivated more by merit than by other considerations that come into play when we get into the public service.
All right, actually bothered about how porous some institutions can be, because casting our minds a little bit back to what happened some few weeks back, there's this Filippo Deri, that actually swindled or opened some of like between 250,000 to 450,000 from people who were actually desperate in a way to get employed in Uniport. Okay, so by the end of the day, he was caught. They spotted him somewhere. They actually wanted to lynch him, but thank God for the security personnel that were around, and they had to take charge and handed him over to the police. So we wonder how does this have to do with, because when you look at this Filippo Deri of a person, I keep wondering how he was able to penetrate into the minds of people, how he was able to convince them, because there should have been some level of conviction before people were able to part with that level huge sum of money. So we would want to see if this has to do with some porous nature of the system that allows people to actually, because they could have succeeded, there could have actually been some opportunities, and then people have to pay for it. So I'd like to have your take on this and how to curtail such situations.
Two things quickly. The first is that the problem here is the gullibility of job seekers, and understandably, I should say, because desperation can drive people into all sorts of things. You're talking about in some situations who've left educational institutions 15 years ago, and then they've not secured gainful employment in all that time. So they become desperate, and once they see anything, no matter how thin it is, they hang on to it, and so it's that's the reason why some people, it's the reason some people play on this desperation, and then they fall for these scam artists. But I also think that the way around this is that public institutions should be more open in their recruitment, and that's also built in.
Army pledges its commitment to ensure that the Nigerian Army is equipped with proper mechanism to tackle the challenges of insecurity facing the country. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Abdullahi Mahmudu, said he's at the inaugural interactive session of the committee in Abuja. Mahmudu, who emphasized that the committee was a responsibility to Nigerians, as he enjoined members to give maximum cooperation for the objective to be achieved. He said the committee has developed a 4-year work plan that will be judiciously followed within specific periods in order to achieve its mandate, and joined members to give maximum cooperation to achieve the objective. The Committee on Police Affairs, on their part, has pledged to ensure the provision of adequate funding, useful legislation, carrying out performance audits, and other allied oversight functions geared towards efficient service delivery and repositioning the nation's internal security architecture. The chairman, Honorable Maki Yelman, who noted that the committee have been empowered with responsibility of overseeing key issues relating to policing and law enforcement at the present time, when there are a lot of security challenges facing many parts of our country, which require urgent attention and solutions. Observed that citizens increasingly look to their representatives and leaders for answers on strengthening law and order, protecting lives and property, and building confidence in our security institutions. The House Committee on Financial Crimes vowed to stamp out terrorism financing, money laundering, as well as bring to justice enablers of financial crimes and criminalities in the country. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Ginger Obinna, while assuring that the 10th House of Representatives would ensure that corruption is not business as usual, said his committee would roll out strategies and policies that are necessary to safeguard the nation's financial system and uphold the rule of law. I would like to stop here and have you quickly react to this.
Well, I think the National Assembly is simply doing what it ought to do.
Apologies, we'll have a track up. We'll take that now.
The committee has developed a work plan that will judiciously follow within the specific periods in order to achieve its mandate. So, honorable members, while I solicit your understanding and cooperation in the tasks ahead, please let's take this responsibility with all seriousness and understand that it is our duty to put the Nigerian Army on a proper pedestal to be able to end the several challenges that we've been having in terms of insecurity in the country. We have a responsibility.
Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, NFIU.
All right, so how do they actually expect to, take care of all these financial crimes, terrorism, and all that?
That's the responsibility of the executive branch, and there are institutions like the EFCC and the ICPC to take care of that. But I think their own responsibility is in the area of oversight, which would be to ensure that appropriate funding gets to these agencies, that are earmarked for the right purposes. I think that's the only way they can do this. Other than that, their responsibility is restricted to lawmaking and oversight, and they can't execute. That's the function of the executive branch.
Anyway, we hope that something can come out of this whole thing. But the major issue in the news we must take is that the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress of Nigeria declares immediate and total strike in Imo State from midnight November 8th, from last night, 2023, over last weekend's attack on the NLC President Joe Ajaero, other labor leaders and other issues, and a nationwide strike beginning Tuesday, November 14th, if their demands are not met. The union, in a communique issued at the end of the joint National Executive Council meeting signed by NLC Deputy President and TUC President Prince Adewolade and Ju and Festus Osifo respectively, said the meeting deliberated on the distressing incident involving the abduction and assault of the NLC President Comrade Joe Ajaero. Additionally, the council addressed the appalling act of violence and bloodshed inflicted upon him and fellow workers and who had assembled at the NLC Imo State Secretariat in compliance with the directive of Imo State. The acts were perpetrated by the Imo State government acting under the guidance of the governor and in collaboration with the Nigerian police. To this end, the joint NLC TUC NEC in section observed that the decision to embark on an industrial action in Imo State was purely in keeping with its earlier resolution. The Imo State government, under Hope Uzodinma, heartlessly continues in its abuse of the rights and privileges of the workers. Now, two key issues. NLC TUC out supposedly on strike right now in Imo State, and by Tuesday, if the federal government does not meet up with their demand, which they've been threatening, they are going on another strike. What is the, help us understand how this is going to pan out, considering that elections are just 2 days away?
Well, if nothing is done between now and the day of the elections to placate the workers or to address the issues they've raised, this is going to severely affect the elections in a negative way, because there are duties for people who are members of the NLC to perform on election day. And if the NLC is on strike, we are talking about the parent body of all Nigerian workers, then those functions will be discharged, and that's going to be detrimental to the elections. Let's just hope that between now and then, today is Wednesday, the elections are 3 or 2 days away, so let's just hope that between now and then, reason would have prevailed. But I think what happened in Owerri ought to, have consequences. We are talking about the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress here. That kind of assault on any citizen should be considered condemnable. On the leader of Nigerian workers, it's even doubly condemnable. So, and to think that, it would even require the NLC threatening to go on strike, actually calling out an industrial action before anybody investigates this matter, shows you the level of disregard for doing the right thing in the official corridors in this country. Ordinarily, with that kind of assault, even I understand caught on camera, and then of course you should have seen the NLC president after the ordeal he went through at the hands of those people who, descended on him. I would imagine that automatically an investigation would have been going on by now. People would have been called in and then interrogated or questioned to, ascertain their level of involvement in all this, and then appropriate sanctions will be meted out where necessary. Unfortunately, it does seem to me that that's not the case here, and if we are not careful, this is going to escalate, because workers themselves are threatened that if by next week nothing happens, they are going to call out a national strike. And I think all of these things are completely avoidable. For a country that prioritizes national productivity, we should do everything possible to ensure that we avoid a situation where workers have to down tools. But it does seem to me that we are not interested in national productivity, and that's why quite often we allow industrial matters to escalate to the point where labor leaders have to call out their members to down tools.
Okay, now speaking of downing tools and elections, that is just by the way, if the president or Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma decides to give a human face to this, do you think the Labour is going to listen, considering Uzodinma's position on this, or the president non-challenge to this, or the IGP's inability to actually, maybe fish out these guys, investigate, and ensure that, we care enough about what has happened to you, Joe Ajerim? Do you think if they decide to do that, now that Labour is going to call off the strike before the elections? If not, do we see a situation where Uzodinma can go ahead on maybe to allegedly get more talks against the people? Or what exactly is he going to do right now that the chips are down?
Well, I think the NLC was specific in its demands that this ought to be investigated, and then, sanctions should go out where necessary. Once that is done, and I don't think that's even complicated, in a way, I don't think it even needs Uzodinma's own involvement, other than for him to stay out of, not get in the way of the investigations. The NLC, I'm sure, sees Uzodinma as an interested party in this, and so cannot guarantee his own impartiality in this. So it's possible that the NLC won't even want Uzodinma's own involvement. They want the president to oversee the process. They want the IGP, as the head of the Nigerian police, to oversee the investigations, because his men have been fingered in this also. And then, of course, since Uzodinma is said to be the sponsor of the talks who beat up the NLC president, the idea will be, allegedly that is. The idea is to, or the aim is to find out the extent of the involvement of Uzodinma in all this, and then to see also if these people were acting on, forcing them to do it. And then therefore, at the end of that, those who ought to be punished will then get their punishment. I think that's what the workers are demanding. And if that demand is met, even tonight, I'm sure they will return to work, and then normalcy will return.
All right, just a very quick one. How does Hope Uzodinma actually hope to go with this in the forthcoming election? This is actually,
if nothing is done,
this is actually a dent to his person.
Well, you're talking about an ideal situation where actions of politicians have consequences at the at the polls. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, we've seen instances where politicians even, just quickly, there was a case of a governor who hadn't paid workers for close to 9 months in the run-up to the elections, and then it said during an interview, during a press interview, that, when they asked, Your Excellency, it said that you've not paid workers for quite a while now in your state, and you're going into elections. How will it affect them? They say, not just 9 months. So, ordinarily, in some cases, there are utterances that Nigerian politicians make that in other jurisdiction would have, spelled the end of a political career. Unfortunately, it's possible that Nigerian politicians are Teflon politicians. Scandals don't stick on them; they just roll down. So that's our situation.
I want to say very thank you, Ene, for always making our time to blow out with us on Atlantic Television Network. Blow out once again. Thank you for being here.
Entirely my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, that's been a show, everyone. If you missed any part of the conversation, we got you covered. All you need to do is log on to these platforms and you can watch the show live, and that's Facebook and YouTube. And we are Atlantic from the App Store, or you also watch us live on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. Now, do well to also follow us on X. We're Atlantic TV Net, on Instagram and TikTok. Atlantic TV Network 1. Most importantly, remember that peace and unity are the pathway to progress. Enjoy the rest of your day.